Hi there. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Kitchen Conversations. I'm not a professional podcaster, and I just want to be upfront about that. But what I am is a very passionate pickleball player. And the goal of the podcast, in quite simple terms, is hopefully we can inspire just one person per episode to pick up a paddle and try the game for the very first time. And to be frank, I couldn't have picked a better first guest to help me do just that. Paddy Hunter-Murphy is the founder of Senior Pickleball Tips. Now, this is a UK-based Facebook group page when, at time of recording, which is March of 2026, had an unbelievable 135,000 people following. It's quite a sight, and he's quite a guy. And I couldn't have picked a better first guest. He was patient, he was generous, and he was entertaining. I hope you enjoy meeting Paddy Hunter-Murphy as much as I did on this episode of Kitchen Conversations. Welcome and good morning. Yeah, a little flub out of the gate, so this is officially take two, but we won't tell anybody that. So I appreciate this. I appreciate you being here. I know you have a million things happening in your day, in your week, in your month, and the chance to meet with you is a real pleasure. So thank you.
Oh, Mike, it's my pleasure, really is. We're podcasting pals.
There you go. I love that. Well, you know what? I look at Senior Pickleball Tips, Paddy, more so than just the Facebook group page, whereas I think the first connection I had to you was through that. And subsequently, I've learned about your website and I've learned about your podcast and all that you have going on. And I look at what you're doing more as a brand within the pickleball community than just a Facebook group or a website or a podcast. And I'm interested in how you interpret that. But the success that you've had, I checked this morning on the Facebook group, and it looks like there's about 135,000 people that are part of that community. And it's not just a bunch of people that have signed up and clicked subscribe and like. They're engaged. There's a lot going on there in the course of a day. So I'd like to start with that in a moment. But before then, I was kind of hoping, Paddy, that you wouldn't mind walking me through a bit of your background, your working career, your passion for sports. I mean, we'll get to the pickleball, so it's probably the core of the conversation today. But I'm really interested in what you did for work and how you landed on pickleball. And I understand a little bit about your tennis background. So would you mind starting with that for me?
Not at all, Mike. I'll be really happy to. I'm going to go back quite a way because sports has been a really big part of my life. And in fact, sports kind of saved me a little bit. My parents lived abroad in places like Indonesia and Singapore and that. And they decided, which you did in those days, we'll send our 7-year-old boy, me, to boarding school in England. So I went to boarding school in England at the age of 7. And I was dumb. I was really thick. I was bottom of the class. I was terrible for years and years and years. And also I was little too. So, my confidence was shot. It was just appalling, but I was good at sport. It was, anything I kind of did was pretty good. It was a big rugby school in southern England, and I was always in the rugby team. First at scrum half, and then later at fly half for the last 3 or 4 very important years. I was in the cricket team, I was in the tennis team, etc., and I loved my sport. And in parallel, my dad, who took up tennis very late, he took it up around about in his mid-30s, and I played tennis, and he taught me. I've never actually had a paid official tennis lesson, nor pickleball lesson for that matter. But he taught me, and I just loved my tennis. And honestly, I think if you can find a passion, whether it's sport or a particular sport, whether it's playing the violin or whatever, if you find that passion and that sort of takes you through your life, I think it's a real fantastic thing. And that's what happened to me with sport. I went on to become a teacher. I did teach sports as well as geography. And then I got into the charity world and started to work with charities. And I was quite good at the fundraising. So I moved into the fundraising arena. And then I went to Australia for 3 years with my then wife and then two small sons. And I got a great job at the Royal Melbourne Hospital. It was all going fantastic. Played loads of tennis, loved Australia. And then when I came back to UK, I decided to become a fundraising consultant. And I was a fundraising consultant until very recently. Indeed, I'm still doing a little bit. I call myself semi-retired, whatever that means. And anyway, I'm playing a lot of tennis, love my tennis. I'm a member of Reigate Tennis Club here in southern England, big club, lots going on. And then I started getting all these niggly injuries. Now, I understand niggly isn't really a word for you guys in the States.
Well, it can be now. We can officially accept it as a word. Sure, I love it. Niggly. Yeah, it's kind of like nibble. I say to my wife, "What are we doing for dinner?" Why don't we just nibble?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm good with niggly. I
yeah.
love it.
Well, niggly is just little bits and pieces, niggly little problems in my calves and stuff. And I was just getting a bit fed up. You know how it is. You have a bit of a calf strain. You take 6 weeks off. You get back on the tennis court. It happens again. I was getting really, really cheesed off. And then my friend Sir John at the tennis club says, "Paddy, why don't you come and play pickleball, old man?" And I'm going, "God, I don't know what that is." And I went along, went to the leisure centre where pickleball is mainly played here in the UK, and I just fell in love, like all of us have done, like most people probably listening to this podcast. And I've been playing pickleball just over 2 years, about 2.5 years, and I bloomin' love it.
Yeah, it's Patty. It's something that I have a hard time putting my finger on. That immediate addiction. I mean, I'm addicted to a lot of things in life. I just started curling. I'm into health and wellness and fitness, and uh, you know, uh, but there's something about this game, and it's so immediate. And one of the favorite moments that I have is volunteering at one of the local pickleball clubs, and husband and wife would come in looking to learn a little bit about the game. And, I could tell immediately that the husband did not want to be there. He was only
Yeah.
at the club because the wife said, "Get in the car, we're gonna go see pickleball." So one of the things I love to do, Patty, was I'd say to them, I'd answer any questions that they might have off the top, of course, and then I'd say, "If you've got a minute, kick off your shoes." And I grab a couple demo paddles and I take them out in the court, and we just dink back and forth and dink back and forth. And that moment when I knew that hubby had decided, "Hey, you know what? This is okay," and I loved it. And I think there's some scientific connection. I've yet to find any evidence of this, but I think there's a scientific connection between the sound of the ball and the paddle connecting that triggers some kind of a dopamine or a serotonin release in your brain, because it's just immediate. It literally is a matter of minutes before you become a fan of the game.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I've seen similar where people come on and just hit a few balls and suddenly, whoa. And I think for a lot of sort of new beginners and maybe people who never played racket sports, it's almost, hey, I can do this. You know, I think I can do this, and suddenly they're into it very quickly. And I do see that. And this is, us at Senior Pickleball Tips. We focus on seniors. We want seniors to get out there to play, and it's so so important for everyone. But I would say especially seniors. There's a lot of loneliness out there. There's a lot of people who aren't as healthy as maybe they could be, and to pick up a pickleball paddle and have a go, it does change
Yeah.
lives.
Well, I think there's some court therapy that happens, and it happens sort of subconsciously. We're not necessarily aware of it happening, Patty, but we make friendships on the court, and it happens immediately. And then what normally has happened, at least in my experience in the couple years I've played, is you'll sign up for an open paddle play or a social play or a rec game, and subsequently from that, you make new friends, and all of a sudden you form your own little groups. And now, the social game's Monday morning, but now you're playing in kind of a private game on Tuesday afternoon, and you become friends. And my wife had met, I guess, a half a dozen women through pickleball about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And she came home one day and she said to me, "The girls and I were talking about going to Iceland on a trip." And I said, "Well, that's lovely." And like most husbands, wasn't really listening, and thought, "Well, that's just something people talk about." Well, gosh, if she doesn't come home a week later and say, "Okay, so listen, I'm leaving on this date, I'm coming back on it," and I said, What are you doing?" And she said, "I told you I'm going to Iceland." I said, "You just met these people." I said, "I know it's going to be great." And it was great. And they had a wonderful trip. So, without pickleball, that trip doesn't happen. The friendship doesn't get formed. And we're both playing this morning here in a couple of hours, and she's with that group of people. So, yeah, there's a certain social side to it, certainly, Patty, that I think people don't necessarily appreciate when they're looking at the game from the outside in.
I completely agree with you. And but one thing I think that makes a real difference between pickleball and most other sports is that the games don't last very long. So you can go in, you can play a game, and it can be 11-8 or something, and it lasts what, 15 minutes, something like that, 17, maybe 20 minutes at maximum. And then what happens? And then you get off the court and you sit down, people sit next to you, and you got something to talk about. Oh, that was a good shot you hit to me, and I love the way you lobbed that ball. And suddenly there's that social connection. And this doesn't happen in other sports because, I mean, I played tennis for over 50 years. Sets last a long time. You don't really get that communication. So I think that's a very, very important part of the sport. And I think that's one of the reasons why people get hooked.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Can I draw you into tennis for a moment, Patty? And that transition from tennis into pickleball, I think, and I've heard you on other interviews and podcasts mention that there still seems to be globally a bit of tension between the tennis group and the pickleball group, and I think we're all aware of that. But my question is more so, what on a personal level, what was the toughest mental adjustment that you had to make? Were you fighting it? Were you a tennis player that looked at pickleball and thought that's just not for me? Yet the injuries and sort of the physicality of tennis were kind of forcing you out of the game. Did you struggle with that a little bit, Patty, in trying to make that mental transition into this is something I can do well, and enjoy?
Personally, I didn't have a problem at all with pickleball ever. I never sort of thought, oh, pickleball. And I do have some friends at the tennis club who joke with me and say, oh, when are you going to play that kiddie sport? But it is joking. But behind that, there is that feeling. There is that feeling. But personally, I never had it. I just felt this is a sport that I can give a go, give it a go. And I'm 67, I'm getting on a bit. And what I love, and I actually think a lot of older senior people love, I love learning new things. And it's so good for us to learn new things. And I saw pickleball as something, look, I've got some tennis skills. I'll be able to get on court and pick it up pretty quick. And what do people say? Pickleball is easy to start but difficult to master, and that's a wonderful combination. And I have found that a wonderful combination. You know, I started probably at a 3.0, maybe a bit below. I won a national singles tournament at 3.0. Would you believe it? Here in England, that spurred me on. I've moved up to about 3.5. My dupe at the moment is 3.6. I really want to get to that 4.0 at some point. For me personally, I like that competition. I like that challenge. That's not for everyone, and you don't have to be like that. But for me personally, I love that. But for a lot of people, especially seniors, just get out there, go to your regular group of people, and just have fun. And that's important in itself. And it leads. You mentioned well-being earlier. It leads to well-being and friendship. So much great stuff.
Well, there really is, Patty, and I think the beauty of the game is that you can plug into it at whatever level of experience. And I like to use the word experience as opposed to saying better. He or she are better. I like to say they're more experienced. And but the reality is that a group of 2 5s or beginners can sometimes have more fun than a 4-0 game because the 4-0s are starting to take it far too serious. And I remember being at our club one night with a pro and watching his game, and it was arguably some of the highest level pickleball that we have in our area. These are all very good players, but there was a group of beginners in the corner, and he looked at me at one point and said, they're having more fun than we are. And I think that speaks to the beauty of the game, the chance to plug in. You decide how serious you want to take it or not take it. And I think that's part of the magic for it, for sure.
I completely agree. Again, I'm saying this a lot. I completely agree, but I do. But I think for me personally, I think for a lot of people, I like the competition, but also I like the rec play. I like that social thing. I'm perfectly fine playing with beginners. I don't have a problem with it. And I will get something out of it. I'll sort of, work on one particular shot or something like that. So I like both. And I think a lot of people are similar to me. And I play differently when I play rec play than when I play sort of pure competitive play. But at the end of the day, we're there to have fun. And I try not to take anything too seriously in life, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, well, we're not saving the world. That's for sure. You know, we're enjoying our time and we're finding some value in the game, and it's a great point because I think is a certain component of the culture of the community, Patty, within pickleball that if I have a pickleball pain point, that might be it. It might be that I find certain higher level players unwilling to invite. You know, a 4-0 is reluctant to invite a 3-0 into a game, and for that 3-0 to be invited into a 4-0 game is a thrill of a lifetime. And you know, I think if there's something I'd like to advocate for, it's that more of the higher level players remember that they once, as you said earlier, started at a 2-0 or a 2-5, and maybe they've just had more time to practice and drill, and maybe they had some natural skill sets that lended, you know, themselves well to the game. But the chance to play down or level down as opposed to leveling up, there's tremendous value in that. Tremendous value in working on those dink shots or angle shots that you might not necessarily feel comfortable doing in tournament play.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I'm in rec play, what I do is I think of usually one shot. So in a session, I might go for a 2 hour session, and I just think of one shot. At the moment, it's the reset shot. Like for a lot of us, you know, got to nail that shot, and I'll just focus on that one shot. I wouldn't worry about anything else. Just get that, try and get that working, and something like that. I'm not banging it at anyone. I'm not being aggressive or anything like that, but I'm getting stuff out of it. And the players who may not be at my standard are also getting stuff out of it. So I think you can definitely play down and get a lot out of it, and hopefully not just enjoy it, but share your enthusiasm and skills and knowledge as well, if people are willing and open to allow you to do that. And this is something that comes up in the Facebook group quite a lot. You get a lot of mansplaining, sort of dominant men telling women how to do things and what to do. And I think one has to be very, very careful when you're on the court. I mean, I will say, look, do you mind? Shall I give you a few tips as we go along, or shall I just leave you to it? I always communicate, yeah, or just leave it, Um, and most of the time, I've never had anyone say, "Oh, no, 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 please just leave me alone." I've never had that. It's just a matter of communicating, being nice, and being open with people. So I think that that's an interesting dilemma. That sort of coaching your partner on court. Beware and be careful.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and you could apply that lesson to a lot of things in life, Patty. A lot of people just don't want to hear it. Whatever it is, they just don't want to hear it. So, listen, before we get specifically into senior pickleball tips in the world that is that, what are your thoughts on paddle? And how do you see that game intersecting with both tennis and pickleball? And are you seeing much of that in your pro? I think it's much bigger in where you are in the world than where we are. We don't have a single paddle facility in sort of this proximity where I am in Kingston, Ontario. So curious what your thoughts are on how the three of those sports kind of intersect and work either together or against one another.
Yeah, this is really interesting, Mike, and that's a very, very good question. And it's something that I spoke at the Lawn Tennis Association about this back in November or early December. They invited me in as the pickleball expert because one of my friends at the tennis club is on one of the LTA committees. LTA are the people who will run Wimbledon. They're the big cheese in tennis in the whole of UK. So at the LTA, there was myself and there was a paddle expert, and we were asked that question. Now, paddle, as you probably know, is bigger here in the UK, I think, than the States, and it's even much bigger in Europe. But what the conclusion that we came to basically is that all three sports really can complement each other. So, for example, at my fairly large um, tennis club, Reigate, we have built two paddle courts. And I am playing a bit of paddle and I'm enjoying it. I hated it to begin with. I never liked squash, and that back wall drove me nuts. But I'm beginning to like it. And in May, which in a little while, me and a couple of mates are going to be introducing pickleball to that club. This is just as an example. And the club committee are perfectly fine with the three sports sort of going hand in hand. So my feeling is, yes, there is maybe some animosity from, might I say, the older, more established conservative members of maybe private tennis clubs who think, oh, this sport is, for children and that sort of thing. But I don't think they are in the majority. I really don't. I think it's a very verbal, small minority who like to make a lot of noise. So yeah, I think the three sports are compatible. At my tennis club, there we will have all three sports come May, June, certainly by the summer, and build it up from there. So I personally don't see a problem with it. Um, I know some people at the tennis club who play all three sports. I play two. I've actually given up tennis to concentrate on
Mm,
what I call new sports. And I'll be honest with
right.
you, I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Good. Yeah, well, I agree with all of that, and it's interesting. I'll be talking to the CEO of Tennis Clubs of Canada in a couple of weeks, Patty, and they built out a number of facilities across the country. But they're doing them with the structures, the domes, the bubbles, if you will,
Yeah.
and they're hosting tennis in one and pickleball in the other. It's a multi-sport type facility. They also have ability to set up volleyball nets and that sort of thing. And I think that's a direction that the industry will go in some ways in these sort of multi-sport kind of environments where they can cater to a broader range of clients and customers. And I think paddle will become a bigger part of that here in Canada, certainly on a go forward basis. So that's great. Appreciate your thoughts on that. So let's dive into senior pickleball tips. I'd love for you to just run with this morning because it's overwhelming to me the success that you've had there. And as I mentioned earlier, the community. It's one thing to have a lot of people that are kind of latched on to what you're doing, Patty, but it's another to have them latched on and engaged. And I think you've created something there that I'm not sure how you manage it, and I'd like to hear a bit about that as well because it must be almost overwhelming at this point for you. But between the Facebook group page, the web site, which I've spent some time on, and obviously your podcast. Would you mind just expanding on all of that and tell me where did it start, where is it, and where do you hope it goes?
I'd be delighted to. So I started playing pickleball, and I get into things quite quickly, a bit addicted. I got this sort of addictive personality, so I got into it, loved it, started telling all my friends, and my daughter Ella said, "Dad, why don't you just start a Facebook group? Then your friends can just look at the Facebook group." And I said, "Okay, fine. I don't know how to do a Facebook group. How do I?" She gets the laptop out, gets a photo of me. Right, okay. What do you want to call it? "Oh, I don't know. Pickleball seniors, pickleball for seniors, old people." And she went, "Senior pickleball tips." Okay, fine, whatever, it's done. Press the button, it's done. I mentioned it to a few of my mates, tennis mates, and just a few others, and family and stuff. And I know some people in Australia and stuff like that, and I mentioned it around, and it just grew and grew, mainly with people I knew. And then I wish I remember her name, but there was one woman who joined from Mexico, American woman who joined from Mexico, and she was the first person I didn't know who joined. I thought, oh, this is good. And then it went nuts. It just crazy. The numbers just people were telling people, I suspect, and the numbers were going nuts. Um, and I was just dumbfounded. I don't know this technology. I'm a quill and ink man, from the olden days. And suddenly it was just growing and growing, and it reached sort of 50,000, 60,000, 70,000. And I know I phoned my brother Terry, who lives near Brisbane in Australia, and I said, "Terry, this is amazing." And he said, "Look, I'll give you a hand. I'm pretty much retired. Do you want a hand?" I said, "Oh, would you?" Yeah. So he came on board as the second admin to the Facebook group, and it was growing and growing. And then we realised that he's in Australia, I'm in UK. And I'll be honest with you, the majority of the members were coming from North America, okay, which you can see on the Facebook group. And so we needed moderators in North America because of the time, because of the times. We recruited a couple of moderators. We recruited 3 from sort of the 3 time zones, as it were, in mainland North America. And it all went swimmingly. We got to 100,000, and it was just building and building. Now, you can ask, why did it build so successfully? Honestly, I haven't got the full answer. I think it's because we had the niche of seniors. You know, it is seniors. It's about seniors, which is 50 plus on a pickleball court. So that's a pretty big cohort. And also, pickleball people are fairly nice people. So someone comes on and said, "I've just become a new member. I live in Atlanta." 7 people will go, "Oh, hi, how you doing? You know, I'm in, I'm down the road from you. Maybe we could play." And it that helped, has hugely helped. But one thing that we got to quite quickly was, and this is quite interesting, is that Terry and I decided with the moderators we would be seriously strict with this Facebook group, right? Seriously strict, and we are. So there's no selling. People can talk about paddles, but if they put a discount code in there, they'll be banned. Okay, we don't we don't mess. We don't mess about. We ban people. We put, I don't know how many people we ban a week, but we ban them. Um, and interestingly, when it got to about 50,000, I got a few PM messages. You know, is it private messages on Messenger from some women saying, "Look, we're just getting a bit fed up with this because there's a lot of men on there who are getting a bit aggressive and did it." And I said, "Oh, send me the posts and comments." And we looked at all that. I spoke to my brother Terry, and we banned about 35 men. Um, and we put out a post and saying, "Look, this is just not acceptable. This misogyny, etc., etc., etc." We looked at our statistics, and we realised, in fact, I kind of knew this beforehand, that we our demographics are 65% women on Senior Pickleball Tips. So that's important. It's something that I find incredibly important. So we did that. So I think we've done the right things, and we continue to be really strict. In the early days, you'd get a lot of sort of East European beautiful young women coming on board, you know, and say, "Oh, you know, I like pickleball," spelt wrongly. Um, and some of the comments were quite funny, I'll be honest with you. And "You don't look 50," you know, and all this sort of stuff. What beauty regime do you have, and all this kind of stuff. But then we just started to ban them. I think you have to be strict with a pickleball with a excuse me. I think you have to be strict with a Facebook group. Um, and we've had discussions about whether we should make it private or keep it public. I've always felt to keep it public. I've always felt it's easier for people to join, and as long as we police it as well as we do, I think that will keep on the continual growth.
Yeah. Well, Patty, it's certainly and credit to you for taking that road. It's a tough decision, and it takes, I assume, a lot more work than if you just let it free flow. But I see a lot of sites and a lot of groups that either I've been part of or have left. You know, for many of those reasons, it just spins out of control, and it can happen quickly. So, give me a sense of how many hours a week you and Terry and the
Yeah.
other moderators are having to spend to manage a group that large.
I'll be honest with you. I I I don't spend a lot of time on the Facebook group. My brother Terry does. How much? I don't know. An hour a day, maybe something like that. We have two moderators in the States, and I don't think they spend a huge amount. Jeff Gem, who's a pickleball coach at Limitless Pickleball, and a guy called John Hamilton, who's part of US Senior Pickleball, are moderators. I don't think they spend an awful lot of time on it. Jeff is fantastic. He puts in loads of coaching tips, etc., etc. So in terms of time, I think we have a fairly well-oiled machine right now, and I'm very fortunate to have my brother Terry in Queensland in Australia, who does put the time in. He does the sort of he does all the backroom work, which is the hard slog, and I take all the glory, doing these sorts of podcasts and things. But what we are going to do is expand senior pickleball tips. You mentioned the website. We have a website, seniorpickleballtips.com. Um, but we are going to be looking at a YouTube channel, and I can show you. I'm even moving away from I'm even moving away from Zoom and moving away from iPhone. I've got an old DLR Nikon camera here, and I'm getting into, similar to you, the Rodell Link microphones and all that. So I am on the verge of a YouTube channel. Um, so we'll be looking at that, and specifically for senior pickleball. Yes, so that we really are going to be looking at it. We're looking at our branding. It won't change too much, but we're looking where we go into the future. But I'm really proud on how it's gone. Um, I love what I do. I make no money from it, but that's not the point. I've made
No.
made some amazing friends, and all over the world. And let me say one thing: I'm a great believer in the global aspect of pickleball. Although over 80% of our Facebook members are from the US, and then about another 6 or 7% from Canada. I'm a great believer in growing the global aspect. Every year I go to Southeast Asia for a trip, and I take the time to play some pickleball, to interview some people, get to know pickleball in that country as well as in Australia as well. So I think the growth of pickleball, senior pickleball in particular, all over the globe is something very, very special, and it's something I keeping a keen eye on. Obviously, our main audience is North America, but I really, really want to build and grow the other parts of the globe, and we are actually in 64 countries,
Wow, Patty. Wow. Incredible numbers. The
which is
statistics
crazy.
are staggering. And you go back, and I love the way you
Yeah.
explained how the Facebook page was physically built. It's just a matter of a quick chat and a couple of keystrokes from people that know what they're doing. I'm always impressed. I've got two boys, 28 and 25, and they're my tech department. They've helped me beyond description. At 59, I'm trying not to let the old man in, but the technology moves so quickly, and the way that you can reach around the globe today and have a connection. And I'd like to make one quick comment on something you said earlier about the game itself and how I think it's certainly benefiting from the work that you're doing with senior pickleball tips. I think there's a lot of loneliness out there that we're not obviously aware of or immediately aware of when we encounter someone on a pickleball court. But I think what your community's doing is allowing people that maybe are a bit lonely to feel that they're a part of something and that they have a voice. And I think that's an important part of it, that they have an opportunity to express their thoughts and feelings on the game or on something that may have happened this morning. I see a lot of comments in the group about that. I was playing with so-and-so this morning and this happened, and how should I have handled it? And I think, for those people to go home and know that they can sit in front of a phone or an iPad or a laptop and connect with the community, I think is probably the greatest service that you're providing, in my opinion. I think it's terrific.
I mean, the Facebook group is an amazing community. It is amazing. I mean, I'll tell you, there's so many stories I could tell you, but there was one story. There was a woman in Wales here in the UK, and she posted, this is a while back, and I've got to know her quite well. Her name's Helen, and she posted a while back and said, "Look, I've never really played racket sports, but I'm thinking of going to the leisure centre maybe tomorrow and play pickleball, but I'm really nervous. I'm not too sure whether I should or not. Um, like that. She got over 100 messages from people, supportive. Just do it. Don't think about it. Pickleball people are great. And she went to that pickleball session and she came back and posted, I just can't believe how nice these people are. I just can't believe how great this whole thing is. It wasn't really about the pickleball, it was more about the people. And then I know now that Helen is a complete pickleball addict and is doing really, really well and is enjoying the game and has actually got quite competitive, which is very different from that first post that she put on there. And that's just one example. It is a very supportive community. People get on there and say, "Oh, I've got this injury in this particular place. Can anyone help me?" And although people quite rightly say, "I'm not a doctor, please take medical advice," but this is what I did and it seemed to help. I myself have picked up a few really good tips. I still do get cramps in my calves really badly. A lot of it came from my early rugby days back in the day. And I picked up the tip of magnesium and turmeric tablets. So, before I go and play, a couple of hours, I'll pop in a magnesium and I'll pop in a turmeric tablet. And I don't know, is it psychological? It might be. I don't know, but it works. So it is a great group. Yeah, it works. So it is a great group, and it's really supportive, and we are going to keep it that way. We're going to make sure that it remains like that and it grows like that.
Well, that's wonderful. How does a website as it stands today, Patty, and ultimately the podcast, how do those two integrate into the group page? How do you see those three kind of interacting with one another? And what's the vision, perhaps, for the website and the podcast going forward? You've mentioned you're going to create a video version of the podcast, which I think is great. I think a lot of research out there that, we talked earlier today about access to information, and just it seems to be the direction that podcasting is going. You may as well do a video while you're doing the audio, and people love to see your face. And how do you see those two integrating into your overall brand?
It's a good question. I mean, I like you, yeah, I'm a new podcaster, but I did a bit of reading and etc. I mean, I just threw myself into it in an amateur way, and then I've been learning on the job. And as I say, my 49th podcast episode comes out in about two weeks' time. Um, and I might have some exciting news about the 50th episode, so ask me that question a bit later. Um, yeah, how does it stand by? How does that integrate? How does a podcast integrate into the Facebook group? I mean, we mention it. I'm forever putting in episode links. So somebody would say, "Oh, I'm an advanced beginner and I got some real problems with my backhand drive." Well, I did a podcast about the backhand drive, about a year and a half ago. So I'll put a link in for that to that person, and hopefully other people will see it and it will grow from there. So the podcast is a mixture of interviews with people, but also me simply talking about particular strokes, particular aspects, like, for example, game strategy and mental strength, for example. I did a couple of episodes on that. So giving examples, my own examples of how somehow I managed to be successful and winning this gold medal in my singles, and how from 50 years of competitive tennis, how I deal with dealing with my own mental strength within that. So yeah, it is that, but also I do look at particular shots. So there's episodes about the serve, there's episodes about third shot, drop or drive, etc. So, and I want to develop that. Now, the direction that I want to go in is to start a YouTube channel and develop that into videos, into more videos, on court, looking at that. I actually do have now my first level 1 coaching badge. Um, from Thank you, from Pickleball England. So I do have a tiny bit of coaching cred, so that's good. So yeah, I want to do that. at the tennis club, when I start pickleball at the tennis club, I will be telling people about, coaching them, the beginners, about how to do this, that, and the other. Having said that, all of them are tennis players, so they should pick it up fairly quickly. Yeah, there is that. But one thing I am quite excited about, which no one knows, but I'm going to mention it to you here, is that we're keeping the Senior Pickleball Tips brand for the Facebook group, but we're looking at another brand, which is Senior Pickleball Academy. Um, and the Senior Pickleball Academy will be just that. It will be an academy, uh, beyond just tips and advice, but a bit of coaching, a bit of how to do things for seniors by seniors. So that's what we're looking at. That's the direction we see
Wow.
ourselves going, and maybe the YouTube channel getting into that brand, which would be Senior Pickleball Academy, and
Oh,
we'll see how that
that's
goes.
amazing, Patty. Amazing. Do you not find though that as you know we get into these endeavors and we learn new things that more and more doors seem to just open for us? It's my biggest struggle is trying to not get out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning because my brain is just racing with all kinds of ideas and thoughts, and you can certainly find yourself going down a lot of rabbit holes, and I think it's exciting. I think in retirement for me it's been a blessing to have found the game and subsequently the podcast and subsequently you this morning. And to hear your story has been absolutely amazing. I'm watching the clock, so I'm going to wrap up here quickly for you. Just have a couple of sort of final questions I'd love your thoughts and insight on. And I guess primarily, Patty, what concerns you about the future of pickleball in a broad sense? And what I mean by that is we're seeing a lot of advances in paddle technology. We're seeing a lot of changes to sort of the interpretation of the game and pro money and professional leagues. And do you worry that, when it all started all those years ago, uh, with a couple of guys trying to entertain their kids, and this game was developed, do you have some fear for the game? Do you worry about the game in any regard when it comes to that sort of stuff, the technology and the pro? And I guess my fear is when big money starts getting involved, does it shift the game in a positive way? Does it help the game? Or I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
It's a really good question. Um, in regard to paddles, when it's the PPA, isn't it? Are they in charge of paddles? When the authority said, "Oh, these paddles, we can't have these because they you can hit the ball harder, and we're not going to allow that." I was totally in favor of that. Totally in favor of that. um, because personally, in the pro area, but also in rec, I don't think power should become the primary aspect of pickleball. And I go back to tennis a little bit on this. I think tennis needs to learn a lesson on this, because tennis allows the technology in the rackets and the strings to allow for power play. And for me, other than one or two players, including Carlos, um, who does have an all court game in tennis, you just get people bashing the ball from the back of the court. And if paddles are just allowed to become power, 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 um, that soft game is going to get less and less. And I think that is happening now. When I started playing 2.5 years ago, we always thought about the third shot drop. It was always third shot drop. Now, about a year ago, it was should third shot drop or drive. And now most people are driving third shot and maybe doing a fifth shot drop. So we're seeing with the paddle technology, I'm a great believer in stopping that technology getting better and better. So that is a worry for me. One thing I do quite like, and do tell me if I'm wrong about this, is the PPA and other bodies do look at pros and amateurs quite differently. I, as I understand it, some of there's slight changes in the rules for pros as opposed to amateurs, etc. So, and I think that's quite good. I think that's quite good. So, that could be that. One thing that does worry me is as people get better and more competitive, and I'm seeing this with our group, with the 100,000, 130,000 plus people who comment on that, is that there are definitely more and more arguments and difficulties on court from 2 years ago. Definitely, I think. One could argue, well, this is just human nature. More people are playing, more people are getting competitive. It is something I kind of worry about. We started this podcast episode saying pickleball people are just the most fabulous people in the world. And I think that is the case. But I used to talk about the 1%. I used to say to people in pickleball, 99% are just lovely. You still get that 1%, who are just a pain in the butt. Maybe that 1% might now be 1.5%. I don't know. And I worry about that a little bit, I must admit. In terms of the global aspect of the sport, I think it's absolutely phenomenal and fantastic. We talk about this a lot in terms of the pickleverse. The international bodies of pickleball have got to get together so we get to the Olympics, and that seems to be happening. Mergers are taking place, so the global aspect of pickleball, I think, is fantastic. It's getting easier and easier for me to go to Italy and be in a tournament, or Sweden or whatever, and just play in these tournaments. It's just fantastic. I love it how pickleball has a really good seniors aspect to it, So in major tournaments, there's a 50 plus aspect to it. And I think that's really fantastic and really important. Other sports don't do that. So I hope that remains. I really, really do hope that remains. So I don't have a lot of worries. I suppose it's just human nature, and it's up to you and me and others in the pickleverse and doing the media to spread the word and say, guys, be nice to each other and let's
Yes.
just play and have fun.
Yeah. Well, Patty, my wife and I have always said to the two boys, when you put profit before people, it never ends well. And so if I have a concern, just to sort of latch on to some of your thoughts, which were terrific, by the way, thank you. I think that I'm just hopeful. I'm hopeful that, as the game continues to grow globally, and people will see opportunities to profit from the game. And I just hope they do it in a mature and meaningful way, and that they don't allow any of that to create more friction for the game in just a broad sense. And so I appreciate your thoughts on that, and I agree 100%. Well, listen, this has been beyond exceptional. Thank you for this morning. And I've loved meeting you, and I'd love to stay in touch, and I hope we do. And I wish you nothing but the best in all these new endeavors that you've got coming up. I'll certainly link back to all of your sites and connection points in the show notes for sure. And been a real pleasure chatting with you this morning. Thank you for carving out some time for me.
Mike, that's absolutely brilliant. I have one more thing to say.
Please.
You were going to ask me about my 50th episode on my podcast.
Do you want me to ask you about that? I'd love to.
Ask me the question.
What's going on in the 50th episode of your podcast, Paddy?
Well, I'm looking at having a phenomenal guest who is the world's #1 female senior player, Lee Whitwell.
No.
And I'll be interviewing her. And she's a lot of fun. She's originally from Gibraltar. She lives in America. She's doing wonderful things with pickleball, especially pickleball for girls and women. And I've met her once or twice. She's a fabulous person and a phenomenal pickleball player. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's my 50th episode, which hopefully will be coming out quite soon. So watch out.
Well, good for you. On a personal level, do you get a little bit nervous when you are about to record a podcast? I know this morning for me, coming in knowing I was going to talk to you, I was just walking on broken glass almost. I haven't done a lot. This is about my third one, maybe my fourth one. So I get nervous. I'm wondering, do you?
I don't.
Wow.
I just like chatting to people. I just like talking, and I like chatting, and I like listening. Like you, I just love people. I love to know their stories, see what makes them tick. So I don't get that nervous. Maybe I should. Maybe there's something wrong there.
No, maybe I should not. And maybe there's a lesson in that. So, well, Patty, thank you for this. I really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Mike, thanks for everything you're doing. It's been an absolute pleasure, and you take care.